The salty air of Alexandria filled my lungs, a stark contrast to the dust and the fleeting grandeur of Rome. Back in my palace, a familiar scent of cedar and papyrus was a comfort, but the silence of my private chambers was a luxury I could no longer afford. I gazed at my son Caesarion, sleeping soundly in his crib. Barely 3 years old, his small hand curled in a trusting fist was a potent, vulnerable reminder of why I had returned. Not as a humbled queen, but as a lioness guarding her cub, and a dynasty. Rome had taught me much. It had shown me the fickle nature of power and the venom of ambition, and the absolute necessity of a clear, unwavering vision. I'd seen great men, or rather, men who believed themselves great, crumble under the slightest challenge to their fragile masculinity. They craved control, demanded obedience, yet they were so easily unsettled by a woman who dared to wield her own power. My time there had been an education in survival, a masterclass in manipulation. But it was here, in Egypt, that my true work began. My people, their loyalty, their love. These were the bedrock of my reign, and I had been too long absent. They needed to see their queen, not as a distant ruler, but as one of them, a mother, a protector. I would walk among them, listen to their pleas, and remind them of the prosperity I had brought and would continue to bring. Their devotion was my shield, a stronger defense than any legion, particularly against those who underestimated me because of my sex. But beneath the surface of this renewed embrace, a colder resolve hardened my heart. The whispers of dissent, the lingering shadows of old rivalries, the puffed-up pride of insecure men who saw my independence as an affront. They would not be tolerated. For Caesarion's sake, for the future of Egypt, any threat, no matter how small, would be met with swift and decisive action. I had returned to secure my legacy and his, and I would let nothing stand in my way. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Brandon, and welcome back to the Time Travelers Club. So it's been far too long since we've talked about our girly Cleo, and honestly, we need a break from all that fragile dick energy that's always going on in Rome.
Yes.
It's facts. The Eternal City, more like the Eternal City of Toxic Men.
Preach.
Hey, Cleo, that's why Cleo got the fuck out of there. So she's like, I'm done.
Yes.
But that girl, she always goes back for, like, God, she's like that one friend you have who constantly goes back to, like, bad men. Like, she's fabulous. She's great, but her boyfriends are all terrible.
You know what? This is proof that that sexuality is not a choice.
Preach, girl. Because men are gross. Why do we choose them?
Ew, why?
So we're getting on a ship with our queen and join her as we give the finger to Rome. We're there, right there next to her. It's us, Cleo. We're all flipping off Rome. And for now, it's in the rearview mirror. So, just to recenter a bit, Cleopatra VII, the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt, remains one of history's most captivating figures. When her name is spoken, it often conjures vivid images of a seductive queen, captivating, powerful Roman empress, and ultimately, a dramatic, tragic end. Yet, as we've already seen, behind the popular myths, the romanticized portrayals, lies a story of immense political acumen, ruthless ambition, and relentless fight for her kingdom's survival in a world increasingly dominated by Rome. Today, we will embark on a deeper dive into Cleopatra's fascinating life, meticulously explore the intricate political landscape of Egypt during her pivotal time in Rome, and the shrewd maneuvers she employed to maintain absolute control from thousands of miles away. The nuanced historical details surrounding her true appearance, and the profound way her image has been shaped, distorted, and reshaped again by history, reflecting the shifting values of each era. So, imagine, if you will, being the sovereign ruler of a thriving, wealthy kingdom, yet finding yourself residing for full 2 years in the very heart of your most influential and often intimidating ally's capital, sometimes rival. All this, of course, coming on the coattails of decades of civil unrest, a history of your people loathing said ally, and just coming out of a civil war that shook your nation to its core. This was precisely Cleopatra's reality from 46 to 44 BCE, a crucial period during which she lived in Rome as the esteemed guest of Julius Caesar. One might naturally wonder, how on earth did Egypt continue to function, let alone thrive, without its queen physically present on its soil? At this juncture in history, Egypt under venerable Ptolemaic dynasty was firmly entrenched as a client state to the burgeoning Roman Republic. This political arrangement granted Egypt a significant degree of internal autonomy, allowing it to manage its own affairs, but it also meant operating under the undeniable and ever-present shadow of Roman influence.
The recent Alexandrian War, concluding in 47 BCE, had been a stark demonstration of this dynamic, with Caesar directly intervening in Egyptian internal affairs to restore Cleopatra to her rightful throne after she had been ousted by her brother and co-ruler, Ptolemy XIII. While she was technically still co-ruler with her much younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, he was, by all accounts, merely a boy of around 12 or 13 years old. Again. Again. But this time, he served solely as the ceremonial figurehead. Because he's 12. So this time, Cleopatra, in practical terms, was the undisputed singular power in Egypt. Even from her luxurious villa in Rome, Cleopatra's grip on her kingdom remained remarkably firm. The Ptolemaic administration system was a marvel of ancient efficiency, boasting a highly centralized and remarkably effective bureaucracy. This complex machinery was largely staffed and managed by Greek officials, descendants of the original Macedonian settlers who had come with Alexander the Great. This well-oiled administrative apparatus was meticulously designed to oversee the country's vast agricultural resources, ensure the systematic collection of taxes, and maintain civil order throughout the sprawling kingdom, even in the monarch's physical absence. You could envision it as a sophisticated, well-structured corporation with clear lines of command and established protocols. The daily operations, from grain distributions to legal disputes, continued smoothly under her appointed administrators and a network of loyal officials. Egypt, despite its inherent wealth, faced its share of perennial challenges, most notably the unpredictable nature of the annual Nile floods. The Nile's inundation was the lifeblood of Egyptian agriculture, and a poor flood could swiftly lead to devastating food shortages and widespread famine. Cleopatra, renowned for her sharp administrative acumen, would have received detailed reports on the flood levels, crop yields, and economic conditions. From Rome, she would have issued precise directives to her administrators on how to manage these crises, including the crucial decision of when to open the royal granaries to feed her populace. Her ability to ensure the consistent flow of grain, not just for her own people's well-being, but also for Rome, which heavily relied on Egyptian grain imports, was paramount. This strong, Proactive leadership in managing these vital internal issues, even from a distance, contributed significantly to the relative stability and prosperity Egypt experienced during her Roman sojourn, preventing the kind of widespread unrest that could have destabilized her rule.
And just to point out, because we were just discussing this the last couple episodes with Mark Antony, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is my hot take, but this proves she's a better leader.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Think about Mark Antony's there and can't keep that shit under control. And they're also coming out of a civil war. Julius Caesar, who is much like her, abroad in Egypt, has to go back because he can't keep that crap under control.
Mm-hmm.
And yet for about the same amount of time, and yet she's abroad for the same amount of time and can keep that all functioning.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's very similar circumstances, and she doesn't have like a second in command go-to guy, and yet she's able to do it. This is proof to me that like when Roman historians are writing about her, there's a lot of haterade going on. There's a lot of haterade.
There's so much haterade.
Because this is honestly really impressive. And people that they worship and celebrate as being great men couldn't do it, but she could. So
great honorable men.
Honorable men. We're either running naked or wearing kinky boots. So
or both.
Both
sounds good.
God, I have this image now of Julius Caesar, on those steps, just wearing just the boots and having one of his seizures. Like, and people walking by. And they're like, oh, and they just keep walking.
Thank you for that image. That was necessary.
You're welcome. Again, for that play that someone's going to write where he's in drag, absolutely put that scene in there. So,
we need tickets.
We don't need rights. We don't need credit. Just tickets. So, the burning question remains, how did Cleopatra, a queen of a distant land, effectively govern a kingdom thousands of miles away for 2 years? Well, it certainly was not magic, despite her, claims to being the descendant or the reincarnation of Isis, but rather a sophisticated combination of shrewd long-term planning, reliance on that existing robust infrastructure, and the masterful leveraging of her most powerful asset at the time, her strategic relationship with Julius Caesar. Firstly, as we've already touched upon, the deeply entrenched and highly efficient Ptolemaic bureaucracy was absolutely key to her remote control. Cleopatra had carefully cultivated and left in place a sophisticated network of loyal advisors, regional governors, and administrative officials in Alexandria and across Egypt. These individuals were not merely passive recipients of orders, they were experienced professionals, responsible for the day-to-day operations of her kingdom, something Julius Caesar should have done before leaving our favorite jock in Rome.
Well, men.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
But he's cute and he has a tight ass. Yeah, I get it. So,
yeah.
Sometimes it's distracting. So,
when in Rome.
So, communications between Rome and Alexandria were certainly not instantaneous. Was maintained through a system of fast messengers and dedicated ships. These couriers would have carried detailed reports on everything from tax revenues and crop forecasts to potential local disturbances and the sentiments of various factions across the court. Cleopatra, in turn, would have dispatched her commands, policy decisions back to her trusted lieutenants. Given her well-known history of ruthlessly dealing with rivals and disloyal elements, a lesson vividly learned by her brother, these administrators understood the dire consequences of defiance or incompetence, ensuring their unwavering adherence to her will. This established system of governance allowed her to exert her authority through proxy, maintaining a firm hand on the reins of power. Secondly, and arguably the most critical component of her remote rule, was the unparalleled, quote, Roman guarantee provided by her intimate relationship with Julius Caesar. Caesar had not only personally intervened to restore her power after the Alexandrian War, but had also left Roman legions stationed in Egypt, a clear deterrent against internal rebellion or external aggression. That's awfully nice for a baby daddy, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Did your baby daddy give you an entire army to maintain control of your kingdom?
No, no, unfortunately
No.
not.
No. Her highly visible status as Caesar's ally, lover, and mother of his son, Caesarion, baby mama, during her stay in Rome, sent an unmistakable and potent message to any potential internal rivals or external threats. Challenging Cleopatra's rule would be tantamount to challenging Caesar and Rome himself, the most powerful man in the Roman world. This powerful psychological deterrent largely discouraged immediate uprisings or invasions, granting Cleopatra the crucial space and security to focus on her diplomatic and political objectives in Rome without the constant, debilitating fear of losing her throne back at home. Her presence in Rome, therefore, was far from the sign of neglect. It was a calculated strategic move designed to solidify Egypt's position as a protected and indispensable client state within the burgeoning Roman sphere of influence. Furthermore, Cleopatra was an absolute master of public image and the strategic deployment of divine association. Even from afar, she tirelessly continued to cultivate her persona as a powerful, legitimate, and divinely sanctioned ruler. She actively associated herself with Egyptian deities, particularly the revered goddess Isis, often styling herself as the quote, new Isis. This was not merely a spiritual or religious act, it was a profound political statement, deeply embedded in Egyptian tradition. By aligning herself with Isis, the goddess of motherhood, magic, and kingship, go back to our Isis episodes if you want to recap on that. She enhanced the legitimacy and divine aura of the native Egyptian populace, who believed in her divine right to rule. She was a queen who intuitively understood the power of perception, and she leveraged it with an unparalleled skill, ensuring her authority and resonated across continents, even in her physical absence. I think that's why this may have been why Julius Caesar was trying to wear those sexy boots. He's trying to do the
Yeah,
same thing.
I had that exact same thought because he didn't start wearing the boots until afterwards. And it
Mm-hmm.
was mirroring exactly what she was doing for herself. She is calling herself
Yeah,
the new Isis. She is saying that she is divinely sanctioned. So was Caesar. So,
yeah.
really, I think they were doing this together.
And it's interesting the kind of I mean, it's kind of coincidence because it just happened to be that there was a founding myth that made Venus like the mother of the founder. But like, yeah, I just find that funny. It's like we also have a founding goddess who protects Rome, and her name's Venus, and I am wearing her sexy boots because I'm a descendant. Not because they look so good on me.
I'm going to have to get thigh high red boots now. Like, that it's going to happen. And you know what?
We need
You're going shopping with me. We're going to get the red kinky boots. Okay.
yes, and we need to have like merch that has like just like this super serious like Roman statue of like Caesar, and he's wearing kinky boots.
Yes. I need that on a hoodie now. So, upon her highly anticipated return to Egypt in March 44 BCE, following the shocking and destabilizing assassination of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra wasted no time in consolidating her power. The Roman world was plunged into uncertainty, and Cleopatra knew that any perceived weaknesses in Egypt could invite disaster. One of her most decisive, and indeed most ruthless actions was the swift and mysterious elimination of her co-ruler and younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. He died under highly suspicious circumstances in 44 BCE in July, merely a few short months after her arrival back in Alexandria. While no definitive smoking gun or direct order has survived in historical records, the overwhelming consensus among historians strongly points to Cleopatra orchestrating his death, most likely through poisoning. You might reasonably ask, why would she resort to such an extreme measure if she already held such a firm grasp on power? I mean, it is the Ptolemies. I'd assume more. Why not? The answer lies deep within the complex, often brutal, and inherently paranoid world of the Ptolemaic dynasty politics, coupled with Cleopatra's own long term, ambitious strategic vision for Egypt and her lineage. Firstly, removing a figurehead secured her undisputed sole rule. While Ptolemy XIV was undeniably a child and as such held no genuine political power or administrative authority, his very existence as a co-regent, even a purely nominal one, represented a significant and perpetual vulnerability. And I will put this in here. Because he was co-regent, just like it happened
Mhm.
before, she was
Mhm.
getting things good with her other brother. They were ruling, she was having the prosperity, she was doing good, and then all of a sudden he has these men come behind him, is like, you're gonna let a woman rule this thing?
Right.
Absolutely not.
You've also got yes, he was like 12 or 13, right? Like
Yeah.
when they first got quote unquote married, right?
Yeah.
And then she goes to fuck off at Rome for like 2 years.
Yeah.
He's 14, 15 years old now.
Yeah.
This is around that same time with her other brother. He becomes a quote unquote man.
And he becomes a
And
threat.
right. The older he gets, the more people start side-eyeing to him. Even if he has not a thought in that head, not one single thought in that head of doing anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. Historically speaking, we see this a lot.
Absolutely.
Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, had the same problem with Jane Grey. That poor bitch didn't have nothing. She didn't have a say in any of it. And a bunch of old white men said, yo, we're making this bitch queen. And then Mary came in and goes, the fuck you will. And they killed her.
Exactly. So
Elizabeth
it
wasn't the queen.
sucks.
Elizabeth, she was in the same situation at one point. Like
Yep.
it's like if you are the center or nexus of a potential rebellion, you are a threat, even if it's not your decision or fault. And she's not taking that chance. She's been there once.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Well, and the other thing is,
Mm-mm.
even on a less selfish level, it's so easy to be like, oh, she was God, that's ruthless. And it almost, I don't know, I think we're painting this like being really personal. Think about if she's like thinking about her country, which so far we're seeing so much evidence that a lot of what she does is for the good of her nation, right? And her
Mm-hmm.
people. Having another civil war after you've spent all this time trying to like get everything back to a balanced place, you can't
Yeah.
have it. You can't risk it.
No,
So,
you can't. And she saw that exactly in Rome, because Rome,
mhm.
honestly, it's men in a cat fight, constantly clawing for power, constantly trying to be like, I'm king shit of fuck mountain. No, I'm king shit of fuck mountain. That's over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And it's civil war on civil war on civil war. How many times in the last couple of episodes have we been like, well, the people all hid in their house and it's a civil
Yeah.
war again. Like,
Again.
and she
Right.
saw
And the
this.
thing,
Unfortunately, she
well,
was witness to all of that.
yeah. And the other half of this, right? I think that, yes, in the past with the Ptolemies, they murder their brother, sister, whoever, because they want power, right?
Mm-hmm.
She already got it. So it's not really about that. I mean, sure, it could be maintaining it, but by maintaining power, you're providing peace and stability for your nation. He's
Yes.
kind of a sigil limb. It's brutal. It's not cool. I'm not saying that like that's a cool decision, but it is what the society was. Like there any other option? Was there? No.
Possibly.
And
Possibly. I mean, you can't send your kid brother to a convent.
No.
because
And you
they don't
even
exist
if
yet.
well, and even then Arsinoe, right? She, we're not going to go too much into it because, but her sister's out there. And guess what? She plotting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she's a girl.
Absolutely.
Like, if you send this, first of all, good luck exiling this boy. You'll lose everybody right there.
Yep.
Second of all, even if you could successfully do that, now he's off outside of your supervision where people can plot. No, you can't do it.
Yep. Keep your
So
friends close, keep your enemies closer.
that's the reality of these times. It's
Yep.
brutal. It's not okay, and we've hopefully grown beyond doing crap like that. But yeah, that's the situation. She really doesn't have a choice here.
Unfortunately, I do agree. Just for peace and stability of the entire nation,
Right.
a 15-year-old
It's almost
boy had to die.
and it's almost more selfish if she let personal feelings get in the way of that. Maybe she loved this brother. We don't know. But like maybe she really liked him.
Who knows?
Don't matter. If you did, like that could threaten everything.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
hopefully she didn't like him. Because he did.
So, as we've discussed, the history of the Ptolemaic dynasty was a bloody tapestry woven with the threads of sibling rivalries, internecine conflicts, and ruthless assassinations. Cleopatra herself had first-hand experience of this brutal reality, having been forced to see her mother and sister overthrow her father come back and execute said sister, and she herself had fought a civil war against her little brother Ptolemy XIII to regain her throne. In such a volatile court, ambitious factions, disgruntled nobles, and even opportunistic Roman agents could, at any given moment, attempt to use a young, impressionable co-ruler as a convenient pawn to challenge Cleopatra's hard-won authority. By eliminating Ptolemy XIV, Cleopatra decisively and permanently cut off this potential avenue for opposition. This ensured that there was no legitimate or even semi-legitimate rival to whom disloyal elements within Egypt or opportunistic powers outside could rally. She was a queen who was not prone to taking unnecessary chances, especially with the Roman world in such a state of profound chaos and flux after Caesar's death. Secondly, and perhaps the most crucial and overarching motive, Ptolemy XIV's death paved the way for the immediate and seamless elevation of Caesarion. This was, without a doubt, Cleopatra's ultimate and most ambitious goal. Her vision extended far beyond simply maintaining her own power for the duration of her lifetime. She aimed to secure the long-term future and enduring legitimacy of the Ptolemaic dynasty by inextricably linking it directly to the immense prestige and unparalleled power and formidable legacy of Julius Caesar. With Ptolemy XIV conveniently removed from the scene, the path was clear for her son, Ptolemy XV Caesar, affectionately known as Caesarion, Little Caesar, to become her sole co-regent. This move was not merely a change in titles. It was a profound and deliberate political statement directed at both the Egyptian populace and the Roman elite about the absolute legitimacy of her rule and the grand dynastic future she meticulously envisioned. It was a clear assertion that her lineage, now intertwined with the most powerful Roman, was destined for greatness.
And I just want to insert this here because I think we're used to the idea of primogeniture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just a given that if you have a boy, your firstborn son is going to inherit, right?
Yeah.
And normally we hate this, right? That's
Correct.
stupid because you have an older daughter who's just as smart, talented, and whatever, and she gets the middle finger. But there is one good thing about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have succession crisis like this. Because at this time, and as we have seen, because shit, Egypt even allows women to rule, like they're considered legitimate too. Shit. So it doesn't just go to the firstborn son, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have your pick. You have a brother that you died, and you have a brother that's still alive. You have 2 daughters, a son, some half cousin, stepbrother thing going on, whatever, because they're all inbred. Like, you could take a good look at
The fucking wreath of the Ptolemies, Jesus.
yes, like you're my grandson and my grandfather at the same time.
No.
But no, for real, like that it's just a system that creates instability, right? And
Mm-hmm.
primogeniture really doesn't become a thing until well into the like medieval era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we just assume that's the way it's always been with these kind of rulers and stuff, and really no, it really hasn't. Even the Roman emperor struggled with this because that really wasn't a thing. So while we hate it, we think that people should be in positions of power due to their capacity and their talents and their competence, not because of whether they had a dick and they were the firstborn son of the last guy who had dick. It does allow at least a clear line of succession. You have less chance of civil war.
Yes
So,
and no. It like civil war is just going to happen. Like in my opinion.
oh,
This is like
well, in this,
purely my opinion. Civil war is going to happen because
well, we're
people are going to find something to disagree about.
sure, but in this, they typically, in order to like actually convince everyone else to die, they have to have something to stand behind, right?
Yes.
Like this case, if you have Ptolemy alive, you're gonna have a civil war, right? Because even if like he's a good little boy, and like Cleopatra has another kid and dies in childbirth, and she declared cesarean to be her, next in line, more than likely, if that's the case, he's probably still a child, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got this older, more competent option right there.
Exactly.
So yeah, no matter how you look at it, whether it was immediate threat of civil war just because he was coming to age, or whether it was because you worried about what if I die and my kid's a child, or even if he's an adult, you see that in history all the time too. Like you have a grown ass man who's the son of the last ruler or whatever come to the throne, and because they don't have this system set up, you have Uncle Jafar come on in and just like kill you and take over, and no one bats an eye. So he's a threat. And like, I think this is at this time, you're at least removing a figurehead, a rallying point.
Exactly.
Civil war can happen. Absolutely. We're seeing this in Rome, but at least in this case, she's doing a good job. God, it's a weird way to say that. Making sure that doesn't happen. She's doing a good job by killing her little brother. God.
No, and imagine the emotional turmoil if she actually did like the sibling that she had to do just to actually secure her son, because ultimately most of the time a mother is going to choose their child over their sibling, as it should be.
Yeah.
As it should
And
be.
it is kind of a bummer, right? Because he was there that whole 2 years, right, while she was gone, and he didn't cause any trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if I'm a good boy and I don't fuck up, I won't end up like my older brother. And he ended up like his older brother. Oh, poor buddy.
I hope in his next life he got to be a bird.
I hope in his next life I just hope that he didn't get killed by his sister.
That too.
So, because that would be funny. He was born as a bird, but then the sister bird kicks him out of the nest. Be free.
Fly high, little prince. Fly high.
He flew real low. The opposite of Icarus. Flew too close to the concrete. So, the immediate proclamation of Caesarion as Ptolemy the 15th Caesar was a masterstroke of political theater and dynastic ambition, a bold declaration in a world reeling from the assassination of its most powerful man at the time. Born in June 47 BCE, Caesarion was still a mere toddler, barely 3 years old, when he was officially named co-ruler alongside his mother in September of 44 BC. First of all, she didn't wait long. The second of
No.
all, it's not that, oh, he's my heir. No. He's a co-ruler. In theory, the same level as her. A 3-year-old.
Babies don't need
Babies
jobs.
don't need jobs.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
We have been in sync today. It's like the third time we've done that. So, but I'm glad we can agree.
Yes.
This act, performed with all the pomp and circumstance of Egyptian royal tradition, carried immense symbolic weight and was calculated to achieve several critical objectives for Cleopatra, starting with the legitimacy and succession in Egypt. For the Egyptian populace, the elevation of Caesarion solidified Cleopatra's claim to the throne and crucially ensured a clear and seemingly divinely sanctioned succession. By overtly linking her son to the now deified Julius Caesar, a figure whose influence resonated even within Egypt, she further enhanced the divine aura and legitimacy of her own rule, and by extension, the entire Ptolemaic line. I am going to take a random side note because it just hit me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is a weird coincidence. So this supposedly Julius Caesar is the descendant of Aeneas, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the supposed founders of Rome. Okay. Then you've got Romulus and Remus. But that's one, right? Venus is his baby it's his mama, not his baby mama. That'd be real gross.
Oh.
Don't do your mom.
Fuck.
But the story of Aeneas, right? It's like he's a prince of Troy in exile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Troy done fucked up. They're gone. So they need to find a new home. And they land in Carthage, another powerful North African wealthy kingdom. And he falls in love with Dido, or manipulates Dido, or whatever, right? And then ups and leaves her, right? And so I kind of find that interesting that Julius Caesar, a descendant of that person, also just happened to find himself a North African Greek descendant queen.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that really interesting. But anyway, the very name Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar, that's adorable. Now he's making little pizzas. Was it pizza was his first words.
Pizza. How very Italian of him.
I know. Was a deliberate and powerful declaration of his paternity, designed to resonate deeply with both her Egyptian subjects and the Roman elite. This move was carefully integrated into Egyptian religious iconography, with Caesarion sometimes depicted on temple walls alongside his mother, emphasizing his royal status and divine connection. So essentially, she would be depicted as Isis, and then her son would be Horus. And again, go back to our Isis episode to maybe, if you haven't already, to dissect the meaning behind that and why that would be a powerful image.
Mm-hmm.
The next part was this was a strategic bid for Roman influence and protection, right? Because Caesar was a dummy and didn't put her or her son in the will. So Cleopatra undoubtedly harbored the hope that Caesarian's status as Caesar's biological son would provide him, and by extension herself, significant leverage within the tumultuous Roman political arena. When Caesar abruptly gone, as we've discussed, Rome was plunged into the brutal series of civil wars, and Cleopatra desperately needed a powerful new protector and ally. Presenting Caesarion as Caesar's true blood heir was an incredibly bold, almost audacious move. It implicitly challenged the legitimacy of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, and who was in the will as the designated heir, and positioned Caesarion as a potential rival for Caesar's legacy. Like, why get the knockoff when you can get the real deal? It's like, why are you getting that knockoff Gucci handbag? I got the real one right here.
Come on, let's go get some Chanel.
Be honest. Cleopatra likely envisioned a future where Caesarion would inherit a significant portion of Caesar's influence, perhaps even ruling parts of the Roman East alongside her, thereby securing Egypt's independence and prosperity under Roman patronage. However, this grand ambition was complicated and ultimately undermined by a crucial and unyielding factor. Baby daddy Julius Caesar never officially recognized Caesarion as the legitimate heir in Roman law. He verbally said it, but he didn't make it legal. He didn't sign the paperwork. The kid's not in the will.
Yeah.
So, Caesar, despite his affection for Cleopatra and his son, had a very pragmatic and deeply ingrained reasons for this omission. First was strict Roman legal constraints. Roman law was notoriously rigid regarding citizenship and inheritance, kind of like what we're doing now here in the United States. Caesarion was born out of wedlock to a foreign queen. He was not a Roman citizen. Under Roman legal custom, a child born outside of a legitimate Roman marriage, especially to a non-Roman, would not inherit property, titles, or political standing. It's starting to sound a little familiar with what some people want to do. Anyway, to have done so would have been legally impossible and politically disastrous for Caesar. Then there's the weight of Caesar's will. Crucially, Caesar's will, which he had drawn up before he had met Cleopatra, explicitly named his grandnephew Octavian as his adopted son and primary heir. This is why it's important to update wills, folks.
Indeed.
To have altered this will to include Caesarion would have been a monumental legal and political upheaval, though. It would have alienated his existing Roman supporters, violated established norms of Roman inheritance, and potentially thrown his carefully constructed political legacy into disarray. While some sources suggest Caesar may have allowed Caesarion to use his name publicly, there was no credible evidence that he ever intended to legally alter his will to include him. Some even claim that Caesar's will specifically denied Caesarion's paternity, though this remains a point of scholarly debate. I wouldn't put it past him, though.
Yeah.
Fear of political backlash was the final reason. Officially declaring a foreign-born, illegitimate son as his heir would have been an unprecedented and deeply unpopular move in Rome. The Roman aristocracy was deeply wary of Caesar's immense and growing power and his perceived monarchical ambitions. Such an act would have fueled accusations that he intended to abandon traditional Roman and Republican values and establish an Eastern-style monarchy, further jeopardizing his already precarious position as dictator. Caesar, a master politician who had meticulously cultivated his image and support base, understood these profound risks and chose not to provoke such reaction because ultimately, at the end of the day, the Romans were incredibly xenophobic.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter. She could have been a peasant. It doesn't matter. Like, he's not Roman. End of the sentence. So the impact of this non-official recognition was profound and ultimately tragic for Caesarion and Cleopatra. Caesar's deliberate science on Caesarion's legal status became a potent and frequently wielded weapon for Octavian in his relentless power struggles with Mark Antony. and by direct extension, Cleopatra. Octavian would almost immediately portray Caesarion as illegitimate, a foreign bastard, and a dangerous threat to the stability and purity of the Roman Republic. God, it's so familiar and
Ugh.
it's gross.
How very Hitler of him.
Uh, it-
Um,
uh, it's very modern too, though. Like
it
you see
is.
people talk about this stuff all the time, like you're not a real American, or and things like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, it just or oh, like they're Puerto Rican, they're not American, like things like that. It's like, oh,
It's like they're
that
part of
kind,
America, though.
right? Or like, no, they were born here, like, or their parents were born here. It's just you're not right. So we're still seeing some of those things today, and it's not a surprise because the culture that we derive from was directly inspired and influenced by the ideas of Rome.
Yes.
So, and with that being said, this sort of propaganda was relentless and highly effective in swaying Roman public opinion.
So, beyond the beauty, Cleopatra's true appearance. So, to diverge a bit, it has come to our attention that we really haven't discussed anything about Cleopatra that has been a hot topic for over 2,000 years. Her appearance. Yep, maybe more than her personality, politics, or even impact on history, it is often her looks that have been the main discourse when talking about her. Even when talking about those other aspects, somehow it always bleeds into it. Because unlike Antony or Caesar or Octavian, how attractive she was had to play some sort of a role in her being an effective leader. Like, for real, no one is criticizing these dudes' looks or discussing how Cleo could have ever been attracted to an old man that was old enough to be her grandfather, or Antony was only in his position because he was a meathead jock with rocking abs. So, honestly, I'm proud of us that it's taken this long to get to it at this point of our story. For centuries, popular culture has relentlessly painted Cleopatra as an unparalleled beauty, a seductive siren whose physical charms effortlessly enchanted the most powerful men of her age. This iconic image of Elizabeth Taylor in the 1963 film Cleopatra is perhaps the most enduring representation of this popular myth. However, when we delve into the historical evidence, which is admittedly limited, it paints a more nuanced and perhaps even surprising picture of her true appearance. Our most reliable contemporary glimpses into Cleopatra's actual physical appearance come from two primary sources: coins minted during her reign and a select few Roman busts that are widely believed to depict her. So, for the coins, these numismatic artifacts are arguably the most accurate contemporary images we possess, as they were created during her lifetime and, crucially, often under her direct supervision. What do these coins consistently reveal? Cleopatra is typically depicted with a prominent, often aquiline or hooked nose. This feature is remarkably consistent across various coin issues and is perhaps her most distinctive facial characteristic. She also commonly has full cheeks, a small or somewhat receding chin, and a relatively straight forehead. Her lips appear full. Her hair is usually styled in the popular melon coiffure, a classical Greek hairstyle where the hair is divided into segments resembling a melon and pulled back into a bun, often with short, curly bangs framing the face. She is consistently shown wearing the royal diadem, a broad headband that symbolized Hellenistic kingship. While the exact rendering of features could vary slightly across different coin issues and mints, and some coins, particularly those minted with Mark Antony, even show a more masculine profile, the strong nose remains a recurring and defining characteristic, suggesting it was a true feature rather than an artistic idealization. A handful of marble busts are generally attributed to Cleopatra and are considered contemporary or near contemporary portraits. The Berlin Cleopatra in Germany is one of the most widely accepted. This marble bust, dating to the mid 1st century BCE, depicts her wearing a royal diadem with ringlets framing her face and a characteristic melon hairstyle. Her features are described as softly modulated, with full lips, and importantly, a prominent nose. A prominent nose. It is believed to have been sculpted during or shortly after her visits to Rome. Similarly, the Vatican Cleopatra, in the Vatican museums, another marble bust found on the Appian Way, also exhibits features consistent with the Berlin bust and her coinage, including the melon hairstyle and the clear footprint of a large, prominent nose, even though the nose itself is missing due to damage. These Roman busts tend to be more realistic in their portrayal compared to the highly symbolic Egyptian pharaonic depictions found on the temple walls, which were more concerned with conveying divine status than individual likeness. Then, of course, there is the Dendera temple relief, for instance. It shows Cleopatra and Caesarion in traditional Egyptian pharaonic poses, which are symbolic representations of their divine roles rather than accurate physical likenesses.
So, what about the accounts from ancient historians? Well, let's get this out of the way. Remember right off the bat that the people writing about her were sexist old dudes who all had no reason to paint her in a positive light. Cicero.
Fucking Cicero.
Yeah, who said that? Cicero? Plus, most of them were writing this well after everyone else involved was long dead. Starting with Plutarch, who was writing about a century after Cleopatra's death, provides one of the most famous and oft-quoted descriptions. He famously stated that her beauty was, quote, not altogether incomparable, nor such as to strike those who saw her, end quote. This is a critical observation suggesting that she may not have conformed to classical Greek ideal of physical perfection, which leave it to a guy to be like, she wasn't that hot. That's the energy this is giving.
Fucking dudes, man. Fucking dudes.
Instead, Plutarch emphasizes that her true captivating power lay in her, quote, irresistible charms, the, quote, persuasiveness of her discourse, and the, quote, sweetness in the tones of her voice. This highlights that her allure was primarily intellectual and charismatic rather than purely physical. Next is Cassius Dio, who's writing even later in the early 3rd century CE, offered a more direct compliment, describing her as a, quote, woman of surpassing beauty who was, quote, brilliant to look upon. This was a more idealized description, and it might reflect a tendency in Roman historiography to romanticize her image over time, or simply a different personal perspective. And this trend would unfortunately continue long after the Roman Empire was dead and gone. And I'm already hating that we have a story of men just scrutinizing her appearance.
Yes.
Like just for their own benefit.
Honestly, it's just like, are you talking to talk? Or do you just enjoy hearing the sound of your voice? Like, what are we doing?
Well, it's like people who like talk about Marilyn Monroe or other like past historical people who are gone, can't defend themselves. They like, oh, I don't think she was that hot. And then other guys like, no, she was smoking hot, and like they get to make their whole careers on like commenting on women's bodies.
And it's such a weird thing because we have been taught from a young age, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So it's all opinion. It's all opinion based. You have a type. Everyone has a type.
Right.
And that's okay. We're
It just
allowed to
makes me
do
mad because
that.
these are the people who destroyed her people's culture, who did her so dirty. And even when she's dead and gone, they still can't leave it alone.
Yeah.
Just there's no one else on the other side speaking up for her,
No, it's
because they're
gross.
gone.
It's gross.
And yeah. So we're going to go into another hot button issue today. It's regarding her ethnicity. She has in modern times come to be seen as a figure who is idolized or a symbol of pride, depending on who you refer to. But I'd like to point out that even if well-meaning, this is still objectifying. People are literally using her as a symbol for their own ends and not as a person who physically existed and probably won't fit into whatever narrative people want to portray her as. So, with that being said, the overwhelming scholarly consensus is that Cleopatra was predominantly of Macedonian Greek ancestry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She was the last pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a lineage founded by Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's Macedonian Greek generals. And for nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemies largely practiced endogamy. As we've seen already, they were frequently intermarrying within their own family to maintain the purity of said Macedonian Greek bloodline. Family wreath, not a family tree.
Yes.
You are both your own grandfather and grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, Cleopatra's direct paternal lineage was most certainly Macedonian Greek. While there has been some modern debate and speculation on the identity of her mother, as we discussed before, there was not a lot written about her.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know when she was born or when she died. All guesswork, right?
Correct.
With that being said, there is a remote possibility that some Egyptian or someone of African blood could have been a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the vast majority of historical and archaeological evidence strongly points to her being overwhelmingly of Greek heritage. Her skin tone maybe would have been consistent with the individuals of Mediterranean descent, likely an olive or light brown bronze complexion with darker hair color. It's crucial to remember that ancient societies did not categorize race in the same rigid modern sense that we do today. It was more about the culture you came from, not
Mm-hmm.
your physical aspects, right?
Yeah.
It could be an indicator of where you came from, right? Like gingers typically were, oh, you must be a Gaul or a Celt or something like that. But that it wasn't in the same rigid system like we've got.
No, it wasn't race, it was ethnicity. What ethnic group are you coming from? What culture are you coming from? Where are you from?
Right. So with that being said, in conclusion, this popular image of the modernly conventionally beautiful, often pale-skinned, and perfectly featured Cleopatra is largely a modern construct, heavily influenced by later artistic interpretations and Hollywood's desire for an idealized beauty. The most reliable historical evidence suggests a woman with strong, distinct features, particularly a prominent nose, all of which, for the record, is also attractive. But that's not really the point. Her true allure, the power that captivated the most influential men of her era, lay not primarily in her stunning physical beauty, but her formidable intellect, magnetic charisma, and commanding presence, and unparalleled conversational skills.
But, as we've already seen, Cleopatra was not just a queen. She was a master strategist and a brilliant performer. She understood, perhaps better than any ruler of her time, that her appearance, encompassing not just her physical features, but her overall presentation, bearing, and personal magnetism, was an incredibly potent political tool. She meticulously crafted her public image to serve her political agenda, both within Egypt and on the grand stage of Roman power. In her own time, she deliberately molded her image to project specific messages. So, as the queen of the wealthiest kingdom in the Mediterranean, Cleopatra consistently projected an image of immense luxury and power, her lavish attire often incorporating rich fabrics like silk and linen, adorned with elaborate gold jewelry and precious gemstones such as emeralds and pearls. I've also heard that there was like some turquoise or lapis lazuli
Mhm.
in there as well.
Of course.
These were not mere fashion choices. They were calculated displays of Egypt's immense wealth and her own undisputed authority. Her grand entrances, such as her famous arrival to meet Mark Antony in Tarsus on a gilded barge, described as a shimmering with gold and purple sails, were meticulously choreographed spectacles designed to impress, intimidate, and assert her unparalleled status. The visual splendor served as a constant and undeniable reminder of Egypt's might and her own formidable authority. Think about it this way. When you go to eat something, what makes you hungry? Smell and looks. You eat with your eyes and your nose first, right?
Hmm.
If it doesn't look appealing, if it doesn't smell appealing, are you going to put that shit in your mouth?
And you
Hell
can
no.
edit this exactly, and you can edit this next part out. That's why Julius Caesar and Mark Antony kept eating her up. You know, because
I'm
she
not
looked and
editing that
smelled
out. I'm
so
keeping that.
good. Here we are objectifying her again. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Cleo.
sorry, Cleo.
But you know what? I like to envision her as she's like straddling them. She's on top. She wants them to do
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
She's just like,
Gave-
hold on, lay
See,
back. I
I
got
gave the
this.
power back to her. I gave it back to her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Control your
Mhm.
sexuality, ladies. So, Cleopatra shrewdly adopted and actively promoted the iconography of Egyptian deities, particularly styling herself as the new Isis. This was far more than a simple religious act. It was a profound political statement deeply rooted in Egyptian tradition. By aligning herself with Isis, the powerful goddess of motherhood, magic, and kingship, she enhanced the perceived legitimacy and divine aura of her own rule, and crucially, that of the Ptolemaic line. They were sanctioned by the gods. She is the
Mhm.
gods reborn. This strategy directly appealed to the religious sensibilities of her native Egyptian subjects, who saw her as a rightful and divinely sanctioned ruler. On temple reliefs, such as those at Dendera, she was depicted in traditional pharaonic poses, making offerings to the gods, further emphasizing her role as a legitimate pharaoh in Egyptian eyes. She was only she was also the only Ptolemaic ruler to learn and speak the native Egyptian language, a highly symbolic act that fostered a sense of connection with her subjects, distinguishing her from the Greek-speaking predecessors. As the ancient historian Plutarch famously noted, Cleopatra's true captivating power lie not primarily in conventional physical beauty, but in her sharp intellect, multilingual fluency, and engaging conversational skills. She could charm, persuade, and intellectually challenge the most powerful men in Rome. Her ability to speak directly to foreign envoys in their own language, for instance, was a significant diplomatic advantage that her predecessors often lacked. Think about it that way. Really, like take that in for a second. A lot of these rulers only spoke one language. They decided that
Mhm.
they did not need to speak anything else. So if you had a foreign envoy coming in, not only do you have to trust that your translator is translating it correctly, but that
Mhm.
they're not saying something entirely different. Like,
Right.
they could
And
be fucking you over.
yeah, they could be talking to each other in a different language, which is like the fear of every white guy in a Walmart when they hear Mexicans talking to each other here in America. But or every like Karen in a nail place when the Vietnamese ladies are talking to each other. Yeah, they probably are talking shit about you. What are you going to do about it? Anyway,
No, but seriously, like that in itself is so powerful.
yeah, you're putting them on the back step. It surprised Caesar when she came up to him, and he starts speaking Greek and she talks back to him in Latin. He's like, oh shit. Like she, Caesar was only able to speak like Latin and Greek. I mean, he was in Gaul long enough. Maybe he picked up some of their language, but maybe not because those were barbarians. But like
Yeah.
I think, what was it? She knew up to like 10 or 11 languages. That's insane. Just Egyptian, Greek, and Latin alone would have served her. She would have been on way better footing than anyone else.
Exactly.
But she knew, like, probably on that note, like Akkadian. She knew like Semitic languages. She knew probably like other like North African languages and things like that. So, and like you said, when these diplomats are coming in, she greets them in their language. They're like, oh shit, like we can't pull the wool over this lady's eyes. You immediately have made an impact of this is
Absolutely.
someone to take serious, treat them with respect. And she's treating you with respect. So it will look bad. Like she took the time to know your language.
Exactly. And language, like, God, language is such a uniting force. Like, I'm little tangent, tiny tangent. Language is such a uniting force. Now, like, I've heard of like other spiritualists, like, before there was language, we just spoke with our minds, and I'm just like, oh my God, you're fucking weird. But but if you think about it, like in like biblical terms or whatnot, the Tower of Babel, right? We know the story of the Tower of Babel. When people could no longer understand one another, everything fell apart. Language is a uniting factor. When we can understand one another, because language is the process of taking the abstract concepts of your mind and being able to articulate them so somebody else can understand.
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful concept.
And to add to that little tangent, at some point we will have to cover the Tower of Babel, not in like the like mythical base, but actually the archaeological base, because there is some truth to like what physically influenced the story. Not that the story per se is real or not real. I'm not touching that one. That's religion. But like the actual like displacement of Jewish people was real. They were physically displaced and scattered around Babylon, and specifically in Ur or Uruk. There was a ziggurat of monumental proportions, and there's a lot of arguments that may have actually been the influence for the stories of the Tower of Babylon, or of Babel, aka Babylon. But yeah,
Right.
so yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to dive into it. We'll do that eventually. Yeah. So Cleopatra's beauty of mind, her ability to communicate, combined with her captivating voice and confident demeanor, allowed her to forge crucial alliances and navigate complex political landscapes, proving far more impactful than mere physical attractiveness. The very audacity of her fictional initial meeting with Caesar smuggled in a carpet speaks volumes about her theatrical flair and understanding of how to make an unforgettable impression.
Though I still love the story, they put her in a rug and stuff, which rugs are kind of stiff. So like they kind of keep their shape if you throw them over your shoulder. But we already know that she was probably in a sack. Yes. And therefore I just love the idea of someone grabbing how do you lift up like a bag and throw it over your shoulder?
Roughly.
You just
but
go,
it's a fucking
and she's just like thrown over some guy's shoulder, and she has to not go like, ah!
She has to not go, oh!
It's way less sexy. It's almost more admirable in my opinion.
I fully agree. Fully agreed.
So also, if you're caught, you're in a sack. You're just literally in a bag. It's just not good look. But as we've been hinting at, though, after her death, Roman propaganda seized control of her narrative, and her appearance became a central weapon in a deliberate campaign to demonize her. Octavian, who emerged as the sole, undisputed ruler of Rome, desperately needed to justify his brutal war against Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and to legitimize his own rise to absolute power. But that will be a story for another day. For now, here in 44 BCE, Cleopatra has finally completely solidified her power and position in Egypt. There is peace in her land. There's no threat of uprising, and for all intents and purposes, her people adore her as their goddess and queen. Though through careful cultivation and management, she has recreated her own image in that of Isis, and as the living embodiment of the protector of Egypt and mother to her people, with a little help from her baby boy, that is. However, just like those neighbors that live next door that are always raising hell when you're just trying to relax at home after a long day busting your ass at work, two dudes are about to drag their fight in the middle of the yard for everyone to hear and see. And it's going to ruin everyone's goddamn night. So, next time, we will discuss what Cleopatra was up to while the boys were being boys and having their silly little civil war.
If you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. It goes a long way for us to appease the algorithm gods and get this suggested to others just like you. The more that we can connect to our fellow history nerds, the more that we can build up a community and keep this show going.
Also, we have a Patreon where you can hang out with us and get exclusive content, like videos where we might try to make some ancient recipes, talk about topics that couldn't fit into the main arcs of this podcast, and generally being bad shit and dumpster fires, all for the price of a latte per month. Research materials and books cost a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time to create this show, so anything you provide would be a huge help.
We can't wait to see you again next week, and as always, thanks for listening.
Bye for now.
Bye, guys.